Okay, so welcome to the Pivot Playbook, a space where we talk about what it really takes to change direction, not just in your career, but in your life. My name is Christina LePere, and if you ever felt like outgrowing an old version of yourself, but not quite sure about what comes next, then you're absolutely in the right place. So today I'm joined by three phenomenal women who have their own pivot stories and come out stronger on the other side. So first we have Stacy Casson. Hi, Stacy. Career strategist and mindset coach. That's Stacy over there with the flower in her hair, looking very beautiful.
Hey everyone,
Thank you.
glad to be
And then
here.
we have Rhonda Glynn, entrepreneur, business strategist. She turns bold ideas into meaningful impact. Hi, Rhonda. How are you?
Hi.
And finally, we have Sonthia Coleman, AI consultant, educator. She guides others through the unknown with confidence and clarity. And she's also a fashion maven, as you can see right now, with her snazzy glasses and her snazzy bamboo earrings. So, hello. And now we're diving into what it really looks like to reinvent yourself. So let's just jump right in since we've already wasted a lot of time. My goodness.
We're pivoting.
Let's see. So, what does pivot mean to everyone here? Let's just do a little, first of all, let's do a little round robin. Let's introduce everybody to ourselves, introduce what we do in life, introduce our job status, everything like that. And let's just do a little introduction. So let's start with Cynthia.
Hi guys, I'm Sonthia. I have the Maven Tech Group based in New Orleans. I work with AI integrations for e-commerce and also work in the tech field and cybersecurity. So pivoting that totally. And I love connecting tech with community.
Okay. And for Rhonda.
I'm Rhonda. For me, I am a business strategist. I always have to explain to people that I'm not a business coach, nor am I a business consultant. I'm a business strategist, which means that I am able to take you from ideation to prototype to business using data, using systems, using processes. My background is in predictive analytics. I worked in aviation for over 30 years. And for me, pivoting, I am the stargirl for pivoting. I am the poster child for pivoting because, quick share, I went back to school when I was 40 years old.
And for you, Stacy.
Hey everyone, Stacy Casson here. I am the Clarity Confidant. I am a coach is the closest word to it, but I think I'm more of a facilitator and I hold space for people by using play and creativity to help them get and tap into their intuition and make it feel like safe for them so they can discover those insights all on their own.
Okay, that sounds great. That sounds great. All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to just go straight into it again. So for you, Cynthia, what does the word pivot mean to you right now? I know that we kind of talked about it a little bit when we had our little tete-a-tete last Sunday, but I want everybody in the audience to know what it's up with that.
Well, every time I walk in the room, I think everybody know I'm pivoting from somewhere else. I have a fashion marketing background, and I did that for 25 years, work in the fashion marketing space, everywhere from Vince Camuto to Nike to the New Orleans Saints. And during COVID, I was forced to pivot. And I wanted to be creative about my pivot and have a strategy. And so something that I did with project management was a lot of AI integration, a lot of e-commerce behind the scenes. And I realized how many tools that entrepreneurs could really use as we pivot in this space with not a lot of resources and support, especially in my community where there's so much creativity and flavor and spice. And I want to take what I've learned from corporate and pour that into my community. And so I decided to pivot and open. It was originally the Maven merchandising. Originally, it was the Maven School of Merchandising. So I was doing an incubator where I was helping people learn how to merchandise and freshen up their space as I worked on my background here as I was pivoting with all of my books and things of that nature. So I decided to say, you know what, I came to be the Maven Tech Group, where I can use technical application to help entrepreneurs be able to pivot as out.
Okay, that sounds great. That sounds awesome. So, what I wanted to also ask everybody, okay, so is it a shift? Is it a strategy? Is it a spiritual redirection that you're trying to do with your whole new entrepreneurship or your whole new venture with AI? Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, well, I realized how much I started to really like AI. One of my colleagues, and somebody's been knowing me since I was 16, they say I actually love AI. Shout out to Mr. Warren G, and G is for grants. Shout out to him that told me that recently. And he's
Gee,
also
okay.
Pivot. Yeah, so seeing somebody that you saw in high school and they're older than you and they're like helping other high schoolers and then so are you. So I realized that a lot of children in my community, because I do partner with a school right now, they're not learning a lot about AI and technology. And I thought that to be flabbergasted because they're really talented. All of the programs and softwares, all of the kids are doing roadblocks. And got into a space when I dropped into AI. I started to talk about XR and augmented reality, and it started opening up this whole world of creativity where I can merge both of my worlds together and positively pivot with a strategy in mind and still be creative and colorful as I still want.
That's definitely true. I mean, you're definitely a colorful person. When we first met on Substack, I definitely thought that you're the life of the party. When I did my first live on there, like Sonthia, being the bombastic woman that she is, she kind of helped me a little bit along because me, I'm very introverted. I'm very shy by nature. So when I do a live, it's kind of like, oh, what am I doing? I'm just talking to a camera by myself. I'm not interacting with the audience, and Sonthia came to the rescue and basically helped me become a lot more open and a lot more gregarious than I was before. So I find that pretty interesting that despite some little setbacks here and there, you've landed on your feet and you're doing quite well for yourself. So I'm very proud of you. Now for Stacy, do you think that with pivots, is it more of a spiritual shift, more of a fundamentally, I guess, different shift? Like, is it in terms of career, in terms of just personal life?
I think it's a yes and because all of those things are interconnected. If you're going to make a shift in your career, it's going to impact the people in your personal life. If something is happening in your personal life, that will impact your career, and whatever is going on in your spiritual, your soul life, that's going to touch all of the things because it shapes your mindset. So I think it's a both of, well, there's three things you mentioned. I think it's all of the above because you can't make a shift without it impacting something else. It's not necessarily a domino effect, but kind of like the yin yang. It becomes this way, which interplays with something else and it creates ripples and brings it out there. So the dictionary definition of a pivot was the thing that everything hinges on. So I think of it as I'm holding my fist and it's kind of like think of a knee joint and you have to have something protected for it to turn. And if you go too much in the wrong direction, then you will have pain. But everything is about adapting and responding. So a pivot is just responding to things, and it's going to cause a counter reaction. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So I think it's all of the above.
And for you, Rhonda?
For me, pivoting has a level of discomfort built in. Will pivot when whatever is around you no longer works. It is no longer, whether it is a job, whether it's a career, whether it is an entrepreneurial path, whether it's a life path, there must be a level of discomfort that will tell you basically that you're fed up of being fed up. And when you get to that point, then you have to start to ask yourself, does this life actually work for me anymore? Because here is the thing that happens a lot of the time. We have been conditioned as women to believe that there's only one path for us, that we will get this job. Let me go further back. We will go to high school and then we will go to college and then we will pick a major and we will stick with that major and we will get a first degree and probably a second degree. And then when we get to then we will get a job at a Fortune 500 company. And then we will get married before we are 40, between 30, 35 and 40, 25, 35, 40, we start to feel that we ought to have a husband. And then we have to have 2.5 kids and that white picket fence. And that is the path that is nailed down for all of us. The pivoting takes place when you start to ask yourself, or you start to feel a certain amount of discomfort at some juncture of that journey. Either you don't like your major anymore, or this is not the career path that you wanted, or you are in an organization, and that happens a lot with women, and you may be the smartest woman in the room, but you are being bypassed over and over for the next level. You're not being promoted, and you're seeing people who are less qualified than you going up the corporate ladder, and you're trying to figure out what am I doing wrong? And you're feeling a certain amount of discomfort. Or you're in a marriage and the marriage is not working out for whatever reason. You and your partner have outgrown each other and you have other goals and other dreams. So a pivot is not, we don't just get up one morning and decide to pivot. A pivot always comes as a consequence of discomfort. There must be some level of discomfort where you are going to say to yourself, if I do not do it now, then when? So pivoting always has that level.
Exactly. Definitely. Because I had this one issue with my siblings. The difference between my siblings and myself, my siblings are about 10 and 11 years younger than I am. I'm the oldest one, yet I always feel like the youngest one because I always think that pivots are something to be feared and something not to do. Because I was raised in a way that would say that if somebody was pivoting too wildly, if somebody was not going the path of their parents, their grandparents, their relatives, even their friends, their mentors, their bosses, their coworkers, that they weren't doing the right thing. And my sisters really moved past that as young as they are. And I think it's because they're in the Gen Z generation or the Gen Alpha generation that they don't feel the need to really be as difficult as we are sometimes older people when it comes to changing after setbacks, changing after difficulties. So I found it really interesting to see that as a generational thing that Gen Z are very interested in pivoting no matter what they do. Even if they're doing well, they want to pivot to something else to do even better than that. So I find that fascinating, and I find it really a positive sign that we're going in the right direction, especially as women, because women have been really force fed a lot of garbage about how we should stay in our place and how we should not do things that other people are doing, especially men, because it's not really for us, so it's a lot of garbage. It's just plain just crap. So that's kind of like what I have seen so far with the next generation of girls, young women right now, is that pivoting is not something difficult for them, but they might need a little bit reassurance from the older generation that even if you have a really bad setback, that you can always fall right back on your feet. If you fall, you always get up. If you fail, it's not a failure forever. It's just a minor setback. So let's talk about small wins that we've had recently, even if it felt a little bit messy, a little bit weird, a little bit difficult. What's a small win that you've had recently that you feel like you want to share with the class? Let's start with Stacy.
I'm going to just circle back to
Okay.
what you were talking about, the younger generation wanting to pivot, and what Rhonda was talking about discomfort, because it seems like when you choose yourself, you're choosing to step into your greatness. Pivot doesn't have to be something bad. It could mean I'm going to choose myself. I'm going to choose what brings me joy. I'm going to choose what is the biggest, baddest, boldest version, because Rhonda's journaling prompt about being a bad girl is living rent free in my head. And the discomfort comes because it's bucking against those norms. It's bucking against that track that Rhonda is talking about, that you have to do this, and this. And I felt is really important to say, that it's not always fear. Sometimes it is choosing yourself. It is choosing to step into your greatness. And the discomfort comes from other people not wanting you to buck tradition, to fall out of that trap. And so I just wanted to say that. As far as a win, thank you, thank you. As far as a small, literal, messy win today, and your post inspired that, the questions inspired that, is I cleaned off my mantelpiece. We've been looking at this. Yesterday we said you have to do this, and I found this necklace that I just put because
Aw.
it's like a catch tray. I found some cute earrings that I was like, where did I put them? So it was a big win. And it's also the start because you can pivot and then get stuck again. We can get complacent because we think we've changed, but it's not one and done. It's a continual, not necessarily reinvention. I would say it's more continual peeling back the layers and allowing you to come forth fully, allowing yourself to shine.
That's wonderful, Stacy. I love that. I love that. I love that. Love that. Love that so much. Especially since it's something that's a little bit like, I wouldn't call it mundane, but it's a little bit like normal, like just like cleaning up, finding things that remind you of the past and making them your present again. And I find that very like, interesting and nice. Definitely, for sure. So as for you, Rhonda, what are some small wins that you've had recently, even if it felt a little bit messy, a little bit difficult, a little bit strange? Just a small one, not a big one, a small one. Because I know with you, you have so many big wins all the time that even a small one,
Remember,
a little bit like,
remember,
an abnormality.
remember, I am the girl. Remember, I said that I am the poster child for pivoting. My small win is intentionally resting. There's a mindset where people think that there are so many books written that you have to get up 5 o'clock in the morning and seize the day and do this, and this, almost as if you're, you're a hamster running on a wheel.
Mhm.
I have intentionally started to choose rest. So my internal clock, I will be working. Usually, sometimes I will work creating content, doing something in my business, and the time will catch up on me. 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm still awake. What I have started to do is intentionally rest. I will sleep longer. I will enter into the day softer. I've learned, like for instance, I'm not going to pick up the phone until 11 o'clock. If you're not message, if it's something important, you're going to message me. I am not going to get into a phone call or a long discussion in the first part of my day. I've chosen now to go into the day softer.
Mm,
I've chosen to be more intentional. So I see that as a win because I worked shift for most of my career. Until the last 10 years of my life, I worked shift rotation.
mm,
And that interferes with your circadian rhythm in that you are never in deep sleep. You're
mm,
always on the edge of sleep. You're always in REM. It means that I never slept very deeply for almost 20 years, not being aware of it.
That's
And
interesting.
now
Different.
Yeah, and now I intentionally choose rest. For the last 30 years, I was not able to rest the way other people rest because a lot of people, when they were asleep, I was awake. I had to stay awake. I worked 7 to 3, 2 to 10, 10 to 7 rotations, almost 20 years. So now I'm choosing rest. If I don't feel my fullest self, I tap into my own how I feel and how I'm going to show up on that particular day. And that has been very good for me.
Okay, that sounds good. That sounds good. Intentional rest is always something that I always fight with also. Me, I'm the type that will wake up early and sleep late. So I don't get like a lot of rest in between sometimes also. So it's interesting because Ben Franklin or somebody like that said early to bed and early to rise makes a person wise or something, but I always find myself a little bit more wired rather than wise. But we have some people in the chat right now that are asking to join the conversation, to ask some questions to the panel. Gina Marie Otley from NYU asked Rhonda if she was from Trinidad because she noticed the accent.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am, Gina. I am a proud, if you look at my profile, I say I'm a lover of all things Trini, and I am a proud Douglas. See all this here? This is Indian and East Indian and Negro mixed. So I'm a proud Douglas. Yes, Gina, I am Trinidad.
So, and then Tiffany Castagnano, boy, I think I totally messed up your name, Tiffany. I'm sorry. Castango.
Castano.
Castaño. She said she would love to hear from everyone what the hardest part of pivoting was for them and the one tip that helped them overcome. So let's start with Stacy.
The hardest part of pivoting is doing it. It's making that change. It's knowing you need to do something. It's breaking the pattern. You've maybe had generational inputs and cycles. This is how we've always done it. Or if you're in a career, this is how you always done it, or this is what you want to do. When I was growing up, I was going to be a doctor. I played this random video game for neurosurgery. I didn't throw up when you dissected the frog. I knew I was going to be a doctor. I was a pre-med major. I was in college. My grandmother got cancer, and I'm like, I have no business being a doctor. I do not like sick people. And I was already 2 years into a program. And I made that pivot because I knew, like, this is not for me. This isn't right. Like, I didn't even feel ethically responsible that I should be a doctor, and came up against opposition. What are you going to do with that big brain of yours and all this something, something? But I went to liberal studies, which is, everybody likes to call it technically undecided or have a fry with that. And what I learned how to do is I learned how to learn. And the biggest tip I think I could give you is to trust yourself. And that is so hard. It's to recognize that if the pattern needs to break, then you're going to have to do something different. If you want to see change, you have to do the change. And there's nothing sexy. I can't give you sexy advice or any mind tricks other than just do it. Like my small win today, I just said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start. And maybe the 5-second rule will help you start for 5 seconds. Make it impossible for you to quit, because I chose the table that my laptop works to help me with cleaning off the thing. And I'm like, if I don't finish this, I won't have a working table for this live today. So make it impossible for you to not make that change. I love to hear from some of my panelists, my co-panelists.
I was just waiting my turn. I was just waiting my turn. Well, my pivot started early, and we talked about this Sunday. I told my mother in middle school that I wanted to be a hairstylist like her. And she didn't like the way I said it. She sent me to private school where she did the principal's hair. And it changed my life. My mom had taught me early that you need to pivot. And she wanted something more for me based on the judgment of her career. And she wanted me she challenged me. And so I came back and said, okay, Mom, I'm going to be in fashion. And I remember my dad telling me, you're not going to New York. You're going to stay right here. You're going to pivot with another plan. And so my family being entrepreneurial, also being Jamaican ancestry, my mother is a New Yorker, true and true grandmother. And they were willing to pivot with me, but I realized the responsibility of being independent was so important for me as a woman growing up, and especially being a Black woman, facing a lot in every space that I walked into. So when I pivot this year into go to a high school, you talk about uncomfortable. I was very uncomfortable. There's days where I'm like, they look at you like, what do you know about tech, software, Python, SQL? What is happening? And all of a sudden these certifications come up on LinkedIn, or I didn't know you were in this tech group, or I started to let go of insecurities. I let go of being the only Black girl in the class. I let go of people watching me and waiting to doubt me. I thought about
that way.
Me thinking about my mother and motivating me. It's Mother's Day tomorrow, and my mother is in heaven. My grandmother's in heaven. In fact, all of my matriarchals, Big Mom, are in heaven. And I know they're shining down on me right now, because it was storming in the world. They're shining down on me right now, helping me pivot, because they wanted me to figure out for myself, because I always chose me. And that was always the problem for other people. It wasn't for me. So when I walked into those doors, whether it was the school door or the fashion in New York, when I walked into the doors in Manhattan, the Roger Hotel, they know me. Wherever I walked in, I hold my head up high, and I was able to pivot because of what my ancestors had poured into me to be able to go forward in anywhere I'm going, wherever I'm comfortable or I'm extremely in expertise. I still have to be able to pivot in those spaces and be able to be learning all the time, so that I'm constantly using my mind to also help others who want to. So I would say let go of the insecurities that you can't do it and you won't do it and you're stuck, because things will start moving out your way that you never believed. And my little win, by the way, is, well, I say it's a little win because I didn't think it would happen, but I got my first partnership with my company. So I'm partnering with an HR, somebody who's very security. So I was like, what? And that happened, this week. And so I said, I'm going to come. And this room is very special to me. My aunt actually used to live in this room. Shout out to Auntie Tanya, rest in peace. And I told her, I said, in this room, I shall be the millionaire that you wanted me to be right here in this room. So I created this last night, very tiredly. And I was like, I don't have a bookshelf, but this is going to pivot into a bookshelf. Me a bookshelf. So just let go and do you.
That sounds good to me. That sounds good to me. How about you, Rhonda?
Well, my pivot is that I left school with 4 O-levels. I didn't even leave school with a full certificate. I remember someone telling me that I was a failure, and I internalized that for a long time. This is probably the first time I'm saying it. I internalized it for a long time. However, I always say my pivot was delayed but not denied.
Mm.
I never chose aviation. Aviation chose me. I went to aviation for a job. And while I was in the industry, I started to realize that there are a particular set of skills that I would need to acquire in order to become very good. And added to which, people saw greatness in me that I didn't see in myself. And I had mentors who started to send me on different aviation based courses. However, I still had 4 levels. And when I was 40 years old, I decided, because I was, again, as I said before, pivoting is not comfortable. It's discomfort. I was being passed over for promotions over and over again, and it was very uncomfortable. And I decided, you know what? I could sit in a corner and complain to everybody that I'm not being treated fairly, or I could decide that I would change my mind completely about what was happening around me and place my mind in another place, take my mind out of it. And I decided to go back to school. And I remember telling a girlfriend of mine, I said, listen, I don't care if I am going to learn to bake cakes. I am going to go and do some course. I am going to focus on something else, and I'm going to see what happens. And what happened is that 2 things. One, I didn't know I was so bright until I went back to school. So that's the first thing, because in my first semester, I got 3 A's.
Woo!
And then I also realized that nothing succeeds like success. I started in a male oriented industry, and my classmates, who were predominantly men, started to treat me different. When I walked into the classroom, they would say, "The bad girl." And that gave me so much confidence that I worked and went to school for 9 years, and I went from an associate to a bachelor's, and from a bachelor's to a master's, and from a master's to a PhD, which I'm completing now. Pivoting for me personally, pivoting is uncomfortable. Pivoting is scary. People feel that you have to feel good to pivot. When people ask me how I was able to do what I did, I knew 2 things. I could sit in my very comfortable job, as we say in the Caribbean, talk people business, and at 60, I would be a 60-year-old with 4 levels, not know what I'm going to do next with my life. When I hear people talking about people retiring, I'm like, who tell you people retiring? And the other thing is, I would not have had options. I would have been in the same place that I started 60 years or 20 or 40 years hence. So I knew I had to take preemptive action. So going to school was probably the best thing for me. The very next semester, the government of Trinidad and Tobago brought free or almost free tertiary level education, and I rode that train almost to the end of it. At 55, I decided to start this agency that I run today, and at 58, I took early retirement and went into entrepreneurship full time. But I am the poster child for pivoting and pivoting hard, because it wasn't easy. I had to work and go to school. I was going to school 7 to 3, working 7 to 3, going to school in the evening. I would be going to school in the evening and coming to work in the night. People see you achieve things, but people don't know how many times that you literally have to dig deep in order to find the courage and in many cases the money. More importantly, find the money to pay for your education. It's not an easy road. It's not for everybody. But I knew that I did not want to end up where I started. And that was my greatest motivation.
Well, that
Let me
makes
try, let me call it bad night.
so for me, change has always been something that I've always resisted. From very young, I've always resisted even just a change to my bedroom. Like my parents will want to change the furniture around, move the bed a little bit. Me, I'd be like, "Oh, you're touching my stuff. Oh, you're doing this to my stuff. Oh, you're not respecting my space." And I think it's something that I internalized from very young, that I didn't have the space or the courage to be myself. And I think that as I grow into myself as a woman, I'm getting more and more courageous as I go along. And I'm finding that pivots are not as scary as they used to be. And from the time I was 19, I got into a couple of mishaps. I started my first job and I met my first boyfriend, and that guy messed me up completely and totally. And I had to recover for a little bit after that. School wasn't going great, so I took a break. I went back in 2019 and I did extremely well. And I didn't know that I was going to do computer science. I thought I was going to do English because writing is my first and last love. You know, computer science was something that was like, oh, I always resisted it because it was something that my father did. And I always resisted stuff that my father did because I didn't want to be like him. I wanted to be myself. So when I got to that point when I was doing computer science and I'm like, hey, I like technology. I like this whole field. I love this industry because it's something that's constantly changing, constantly growing, constant learning. But again, like Sonthia said, I was the only woman in the room most of the time, the only black woman in the room most of the time. Definitely. And that became isolating. And that became very isolating and very lonely and scary. But I leaned into myself. I pivoted, I leaned into myself, and I got to a couple of different junctions in my life where I said, I'm not sure if I want to code. I'm not sure if I want to do product management. I'm not sure if I want to do data analytics. I'm not sure if I want to just be a regular schmegular computer scientist. And now I'm in a place where I feel comfortable. I feel like I'm going to manage myself well and manage myself accordingly. So I love that part of change, that people should not resist it, especially if it's hard. I think some other person, I don't know, his name ends with Kennedy or something. He said that something along the lines of, like, it's not good when things are easy, it's good when things are hard, or good when things are difficult. So I find that very, very good that people want to maintain that sort of pivoting in their own lives, especially women. So another thing that I wanted to talk about was a recent news story that came out about Black women in particular and how they are struggling in this new economy and this new job market. There were recent numbers that came out that said in April of 2025, Black women was the only demographic in the United States that actually had an increased unemployment rate rather than a decreased unemployment rate. And I find that particularly difficult to swallow because a lot of these women are just like us. They're pivoting, they're changing careers, they're switching things up, they're going back to school, and they are not thriving. And I find that very difficult, and I find that very sad and very hard to believe. So I want to know everybody's opinion on this, and I want to start with Rhonda again, because I know that when we had our chat on Saturday, you had a lot of opinions about this. So I want everybody to hear from you.
Well, because my passion is in female entrepreneurship, and there are two reasons for that. One, it's very simple. Woman with a dollar is a woman with a plan. So that's the first one. The second thing is that, by and large, whether it is the United States or any other place, especially in the Caribbean, men are the most qualified candidates that come out of higher level learning. They are the ones with the PhDs. They are the ones who go into graduate school. They are the ones who graduate at the top of their class. But having said that, there is a mindset that we unfortunately have bought into, and it is this, that Somehow we've been conditioned to believe that those qualifications are going to be the golden key that is going to open the golden door that is going to usher us into paradise. Being a trainer for more than 15 years, I can tell you very clearly that the classroom is a controlled environment. The operational environment is where the rubber is going to hit the road. We have to ask ourselves one very salient question. Why is it that the men in organizations are getting promoted faster than we are? Why is it that the men are being retained and we are being let go? Why is it that these men who by and large, and I can say it with my whole chest, are underqualified and do not have the requisite ability, skills, and knowledge are thriving? And I'll tell you why. Because the one thing women have not been taught to do is to create relationships. Men create synergy outside and inside of the job. The discussions about promotion and right fit do not take place in the conference room. They take place on the basketball court. They take place on the fishing trips. They take place in the bars. They take place in all the places where humans as social animals will meet and greet and create linkages. We as women, we have never been conditioned to be our sisters' keepers. Most of the time we give it lip service and there's no reality in it. If we do not create relationships, if we do not create community, then it is easy. There is something that Kara Harris says all the time, and I believe it 100%. If you do not create those relationships, who is going to take your paper into the room where those decisions are going to be made? Remember, decisions about retaining people, decisions about tenure, decisions about promotion and right fit are made in rooms that we are not going to be in. And if we do not create relationships, strong relationships, not only amongst women, but amongst other communities, then who's going to take your paper into the room? When they're making a decision, and Christine has somebody who will, as we say in the Caribbean, will pound the table for Christine. Christine has a better chance of being promoted, regardless of whether Christine has a PhD or not. If Rhonda is only interested in keeping her head down and convinced that her work will speak for her, baby, your work is not speaking for you. And that is exactly what is happening. It is unfortunate because in the United States, Black women are by and large the most qualified candidates, but we have not learned how to build relationships. And I'm saying it with all the love in my heart because I'm not here to hate on anybody, but we have to understand that it takes more than just saying that your work will speak for you to take you to the next level. You have to create those relationships. Remember, I said that my upward mobility in aviation was dictated to a large part by people who saw greatness in me when I didn't see it in myself. So when they were selecting candidates to go on aviation-based courses, my name would be thrown into the mix. I had a mentor who so believed in me. He said that if he was selected for a course and my name is not on the list, he's not going. That is when you get real support. That is what real support looks like. And coming from aviation, where in aviation is a global village where there's always something that you have that somebody wants and vice versa. I have learned the power of relationships over geographical distances. This is what we have to do. We have to start to build relationships, both with women who look like us and women who do not look like us. Because I'll leave this for everybody tonight to think about. All women have the same story, regardless of demographic, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of location. And when one woman succeeds, all women can succeed. I have built a business around my passion, my belief in women, because when I was coming up in the world as a woman and life was lifing, I wish that there was some woman out there, and I say it all the time, would hold my hand and say to me, Rhonda, you see all this drama you're going through, all this sadness, trust me, you'll get over it. It will get better. Believe in yourself and believe in your ability to pivot to become the best version of yourself. And there was nobody. And I promised myself that I would become that person. And that is my purpose. That's the passion that I put into this business that I have built.
Definitely, definitely. I love that. I love that. For Stacy, I think that you work in a field that is male dominated. I believe that we talked about this beforehand.
Yeah, I'm in the support aspect of it, but what Rhonda's saying is how I have honestly succeeded because I work in logistics and it has been through relationships. I started out as an admin and I built relationships. I built relationships with my boss. I mean, yes, you're supposed to, but there was a time where he had a choice to make because he had an admin and he chose me. And I think some of that is the relationships that I had built over time. And management, I'm like management programs that wasn't my roles definition. People forward for that. I'm honestly really fortunate, but some of that is being open to these changes. Like we can't go in with, yes, there are systems in place actively seeking to bring us down, especially as Black women actively seeking to bring us down. It's a yes and, but what can we do to work within those systems? And part of it was learning to your own horn. I led I'm Remarkable facilitation, and it was challenging. I did not like tooting my own horn, being Jamaican myself. It is your work will speak for yourself. The last time I checked, my work did not get up, go into another room, and go, "Hey, have you seen Stacy?"
Exactly.
It's not going to happen. You do have to get uncomfortable and speak up, show your capabilities, talk to other people. If you're shy, then, hey, I learned how to do this cool thing. Do you want to learn how to do this cool thing? And that's what gets your name out there. I've I don't even know, I'm not bragging, it's not a humble brag, but every role I've had, someone said, hey, you should look into this. And the first one that I applied for, I actually didn't get it. And they said, well, we knew you were nice, but we didn't know you were competent. Nice is not, my granny
See?
said, nice won't save you. Nice won't save you. So you have to
Yep.
show that you can do it. You have to broadcast what you're capable of because it's not going to walk out there and do it for you. It's not going to do it for you. So I'm in full alignment with what Rhonda's saying. And if you don't know how to do it, learn how to do it. I'm definitely a doer. If I don't know how to do something, I'm curious. And with that network, hey, do you know how to do this? Can you show me this? Or I've been trying to do this and I looked this up. You have to do your own work. Like take advantage of the resources you have before you go and talk to someone else because that's their time. And if you don't have that relationship, they're not going to share their time with you. So those relationships are important, and building your skill set in order to help facilitate that pivot is going to help you.
Sonthia, I know that you also had issues with an older woman in your sphere that did not speak in your corner when you were trying to pivot yourself. You've talked about this a couple of times, and I know that especially with women of color, it happens that we end up becoming more so enemies in the field rather than true allies to each other.
Oh, yeah.
Older women in particular, they've come from a generation whereby if you don't act like the way that a man would, especially in these sort of spheres like technology, like politics, like business, that you won't be able to succeed in the way that you could if you just lean into your feminine nature, your wild feminine nature, your strong feminine nature, you know? So
Post that
you
card,
tell us
Stacy.
about that. You tell us about that situation and how you're basically like, kind of
About
proving her
pivot.
wrong.
Boy. And when I went to Target this Sunday, I saw the product launch there and I said, oh, that's what I was working on as I had to exit. Someone who manipulates the system and use you as a tool to wean you into different departments. It's not that you speak marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to do this. I need you to, who's the allies and all behind. She was, building a case on me. And what I realized that she liked weak individuals that didn't speak up. And the fact that I could pivot rapidly. She really tried me. Every meeting, she was like taking 6 and 7 meetings at a time. I was working 80 hours a week. I'm answering the phones on weekends. I'm stuck to the computer. I can't leave. My family's like, this is the kind of job that I thought we were. I had paralysis of the pinky. Still typing. Okay, I'm all clear now. I want to say it was the worst and the best thing that ever happened to me. Because what someone tried to do emotionally is take advantage of me, knew my story because we knew each other offline, talked about my mother being deceased. Like it was deep. And what happens when another female who claims to be an ally try to manipulate you in a work environment that's male dominant and people still favor you? It's a problem. They have to get rid of it. And so I remember her telling me, if they ever fire us, we'll be good. But what she didn't realize in that narrative that we weren't sisters. We weren't raised together. I have a sister and she's very intelligent. And the meanwhile, I took what I knew and I wrote everything down. I have impeccable notes, handwritten. So I had a book with a bamboo hoop on it. In fact, it's laying right there that I got from Target. I took this book and I sat down with my cousin, Jay, and she's in tech and never thought she could be in tech. I said, you see this book? Every meeting, every hour, every incriminating moment this woman tried to put me through, it's all in this book. And it's for you. It's for the girl next to you. It's for the sister down the street. It's for the girl in another country that can't speak this language. We can transcribe this. Because what I know here, like my mother told me, she could never take it. And so I was able to use that to say, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm not going to talk to another woman in this world. But I'm going to bring women together of like-mindedness who are my allies. And someone told me, said, Sonthia, you got friends all over the world. I said, you know why? Because I'm genuine. And my grandmother always told me, if you have a pure heart, there's nothing in this world you should have. And so I wanted to pivot. I wanted to change. I wanted something new. I didn't want to be known as just the fashion girl. She kept trying to paint me that I couldn't do this. I couldn't do tech. I wasn't tech. She knew better than me. And she was a Latina sister. And so it was funny because she tried to use all kind of stuff. And I was like, I have friends in Puerto Rico. So she used LinkedIn and these things to lie and create this image of who, and I was real. I was legit. If I didn't know something, I wasn't afraid to say, I want to learn. And I think that's the biggest thing when you're pivoting is don't be ashamed of what you do not know, because there's so many tools and resources. I had to look in the back of magazines when I was coming. I didn't eat lunch in high school because we had a computer lab and I wanted to get to it. My father, made sure we had a computer that cost $1,000 back then. That was extremely hard, but he knew I needed to invest in technology in order to propel his daughters for the future. So I said, gather your resources together, gather your community together. And when you share those one words of positivity to a woman who is struggling, because we all have been there, it gives them the tools they need to pivot in any kind of situation, whether it's personal, whether it's work, whether it's, something going on at home. Like you said, Rhonda, when they tell you leave everything at the door, that's impossible for a woman to delete everything at the door. When you got psoriasis up the pink and you're trying to, you can't leave that at the door. You got Vaseline on your finger, you sliding on the keyboard. You can't leave that at the door. So I think we're being real and having real community, real water cooler hours. And just having community and like-mindedness is to help us to have a better ecosystem for the future and teach these children what it is to have real.
I'd like to add something to that too. There's a mindset that that when you get to a certain age,
Mm-hmm.
that that you can't learn. I did a radio interview about 2 weeks ago, and the interviewer was saying that one of the problems, of the supposed problem for the rapid adoption of tech, is that older people are averse to technology. That is so not true. That is so not true, because here is the thing. We grew up in a time when the reading, the writing, and the arithmetic was how we were taught. So it is the same level of matriculation that lends itself to technology. Technology is very much human interfacing with tech. It is very much that. Large language models learn from us as we learn from it. It is iterated. How you could say that people have, How? I'm always at a loss for that. The other thing I would like to share today is that we all these things, women are extremely powerful. It is our power that scares people. When I told Stacy to start her journaling by writing it, what would I do if I were a bad girl? Sometimes, in order for you to be the fullest bad girl that you can be, is just visualizing it.
Yeah.
You are going to this. You are going to the people. People are going to be all in their feelings. People. I went to a networking event with a T-shirt, and on the T-shirt was written, "Tomorrow is not promised to anyone. Custom today." And what a woman saw it because it was an Uzo font, which was an African, a Nigerian font. And you wouldn't notice it at first that is what was written on the T-shirt. And when she looked at it in the function, she said, "Shit." She said, "I like that T-shirt." I said, "Because I'm bringing out a line of T-shirts because I like a lot of sayings, quotations on T-shirts. I'm bringing out an entire line for baddie girls. So you're going to have baddie things on it." But the point I'm making is this: the power that we have as women, do not underestimate it. We are the dream of our grandmothers and our great grandmothers who could only visualize what we take for granted now. So why not do it? Why not pivot? So my nails are always the thing.
Yes.
A guy saw me in the function on Friday and he said, "You are larger than life." Because it's the first time that he had seen me outside of LinkedIn. I am a strong believer in the reinvention. I have never done, see them? I have never done the same pattern twice.
No, Cam.
I have never done the same pattern twice. Never. Never done the same pattern twice. Because I get bored very easily. So I am saying that the power that we have to be nurturers, to be wives, to be nation builders, to be fierce, to be warriors, to be writers, to be poets. All of that is inside of every woman. Why the hell you shouldn't want to reinvent yourself? If it don't work, it don't work. If it don't work, it don't work. You can reinvent yourself every single time. Every day you have the opportunity to create a new version of yourself. You could decide that this job no longer works. You could decide this marriage no longer works. You could decide this career path no longer works. Go ahead and do it. At the end of the day, the only person that you actually have the only person's expectations you have to live up to is yours.
Your words have never been spoken. But before we close, I'd love to hear what you hope our audience walks away with today. Is it clarity, confidence, a sense of community? And let's hear it from everyone. Let's start with Stacy.
What I want our audience to walk away with is that inner belief that you can change. Rhonda talked about my journaling, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm such a boring bad girl. And I said, no, that I don't have to define myself like that. We don't have to give up our power. We are powerful, like Rhonda was saying, and you are the one that is responsible for making your life. So I want to plant a seed that change is possible, that pivoting is possible, because that is the first step. That you don't think you can do it. If you don't think you know enough, go get the knowledge. If you don't think you can do it, start on a different scale. But you can do it. You are responsible for yourself. Nobody is coming to save you. None of us, although these women are amazing, none of us is coming to save you. I'm sure if you reach out, we will talk to you. We will give you an ear, share our wisdom, but nobody's coming to save you. So it's up to you to save yourself.
Sonthia?
Just say, start with creativity, right? I have to pivot in a space that usually there's not a lot of women. It's like cybersecurity, IT, all of this serious stuff like Ms. Rhonda was saying, right? And I don't want to forget who I am. I'm still going to wear my nails. I'm still going to wear my bamboo hoops. I'm going to put my red lip on. But I thought, oh, I'm going to create a mood board that embodies this woman that I'm going to pivot to be with my company and allow me to grow all my ideas. So I have a lady on there with a long, long braid because my name is Sonthia. I'm named after somebody in Hindu, sister's best friend. And so it means happiness. So I just got this woman with this long braid with this gold in her hair, her gold earrings. I got the house, the look. And it's just things that I want to prevail in this goal. And I have it on my phone. So I have a visual small board. I'm starting with creativity. I'm planting seeds in my mind. So I'm looking at this every day. It's not a selfie of myself. I see a lot of women on their phones, they got selfie of themselves. I don't even know it's them, but I started with me. Okay, I'm going to work on me, right? I'm going to get the tools I need, the resources I need. I'm going to network in the way that I need. I want to network intention. I don't want to just have all these connections with people, and they don't even know who I am. If I tell you I'm Sonthia from New Orleans and it's either a po' boy or some gumbo, you're going to know which one I'm eating, both of them. So I wanted to be sincere. So I started with myself with a creative mood board to get me excited. I started moving things in my office, in my studio space. This is brand new and I'm so excited about it because I didn't wait to buy the shelf from Target or to do anything. I was able to really just use what I had. And I think we also think we're going to wait to get that perfect course. We're going to wait to do this. I'm going to sign up for that lady. She says she's going to get it. No, you use your intuition as women, the power that you're given to make the discernment decisions to go forward with an item that resonates to you. When I started pivoting in AI, Dr. Terry Horton had free courses. She still does. And I repost. All the resources I'm using is free. I used to pay thousands of dollars for a website. I got a free until I'm able to pivot in the step where I have a client that's paying for my expenses or paying for this. I've received a partnership. I have income. I'm not no longer theoretically thinking about the future before it happens. I have a strategy. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. I'm not embarrassed. I have my mood board for inspiration and encouragement. I'm reading meditations and doing things that make my body feel good, my mind feel good. I'm eating better food. I'm pivoting in a whole life, a whole system. And then I'm walking it. I'm not just taking a picture and it's smiling for Instagram. I'm literally real life in the 504 living this. So when you run up on me, I'm still that same pivotal, blossoming of sunshine of inspiration because I'm looking at it every day. Not also in the mirror, but on my phone, in my conversations, in my connections, and in my purpose. So I would say start with creativity so you can lead in other people's lives in creativity.
Totally. And the famous last words from Rhonda before we close out.
My thing is this: build the biggest, most audacious, most bold, most badass version of your life. Build it. Build it big. Don't ask anybody for permission. When you have created it in your mind, in your visual board, in your writing, because writing is really powerful. There's an energy that takes place when you put pen to paper. The universe literally starts to bend in your favor. Break it into tasks and then break it into subtasks. You are going to figure out what you already know is more than you actually think that you know. Because every stage of our lives, we bring experiences. I am going to be 62 in August. I am built for speed. I have gotten rid of all the things that I can't carry forward. I'm just carrying forward the things that will carry me to be a hot girl at 80. So I am saying, do an audit of what you are good at, and you will see the gap. Then go fill that gap. Don't be afraid to say, I am not good at these things. Go find it. One of the issues I have as a business strategist is that women need to have a better relationship with money. And it is rooted in shame and fear. And it is something that we need to forgive ourselves for because this was a skill that we were never taught and we simply did not know. Do not think that it is an indictment on you if you're not good with money. But if you do not know your numbers, if you cannot tell the story of your business using the language, numbers is a language, just like French, Spanish, everything. Use the language. Go read. I don't look at TV at all. I am a podcasting girl. I'm a reading girl. I read all the time. Feed your mind. Choose your circle very carefully. There are people who have outlived their sell-by date in your life. Allow them to leave, please. Do not share too much of what you want to do with these people, because these people do not know where you are going. When God gave you a vision or when He gave you a gift, it was not conference call. But when you when you speak these things into the universe, trust and believe that the universe will lead you to the people who will speak life into your ambitions. I want women to become each other's keepers. I am from Trinidad. Sonthia is from the South. But Stacy is in Florida. We are all the offspring of immigrants. Who would have think that? Who would have think today that four women coming from immigrant backgrounds who did not know each other are able to come together and decide, you know what? We could be a light, we could be a lamp for both our feet and the feet of others. The universe is always working in your direction. You are the person that you most need to love. You are the person that you most need to care for, and you are the person that you most need to support. And I'm leaving that with you all today.
Thank you very much. That's what real change looks like. That's what real change looks like. So we're doing a casting call for the second episode of the Pivot Playbook for anybody that is interested in the topic of what Rhonda so eloquently said about money and management and their finances. So I'm going to be sending out a casting call very soon, and it's going to be not clean. It's going to be not perfect, but it's going to be powerful. It's going to be powerful. So a huge thank you to Stacy, Rhonda, and Sonthia for showing up with so much honesty, so much wisdom. And to everybody still watching, your pivot doesn't have to look like anybody else's. It just has to be yours. Okay? So join us next time for some more real stories from the messy middle, because your next chapter starts then. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank
Thank you very
you.
much.